Okay.
We can get started.
You're going to stay right here.
Oh, okay.
You're going to stay right here.
I don't think those people are coming down.
No, we just got a whole nother class in.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, we're filled up. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. So it's been too long. It's been 5 years since Jackson Hole High School has done a Veterans Day recognition. And I'm so proud that after 5 years, we've been able to put together a show for everybody this afternoon and to properly honor our veterans that have sacrificed and served for our country. My name's Bennett Lieberman. I'm the principal of Jackson Hole High School. Standing next to me is Mary Tesey. Her official title is school registrar, but on the list of things that she does for our community, like that's kind of buried way down on the list. She is just an amazing person, and her heart is in the absolute right place. And if it weren't for her, we wouldn't be having this ceremony this afternoon. So let's give her a big round of applause.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. So let's get on with the ceremony. If we could please have the curtain open. If I could ask everybody to stand. And to start us, I'd ask that everybody please remain standing. If you're wearing a hat, please remove your hat. To start us off this afternoon, I have the pleasure of introducing the Jackson Hole High School band led by Mr. Binko. I'd ask that everybody remain standing, please. Remain standing. To lead us this afternoon in our Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to call out two of our awesome students, Cooper Guild and Caden Quantrill.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Doug, we got this microphone? I'm now going to pass the microphone to our veterans on the stage so that they can each introduce themselves to us this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much, Bennett, and
You're just going to introduce yourself, and then we're going to do the speeches next.
okay. I'm David Hill. I've been a resident here of Jackson for 16 years, and it's a great pleasure to be here.
Excellent.
I'm Michelle Weber.
Hello, I'm Todd Hanna. Some of you know Andrew Hanna, who graduated here last year.
Yeah, Randy Griebel. I had 3 kids just graduate here not that long ago, so some of y'all know me.
I'm Nick Zawacki, resident of Jackson Hole since 1988. I have 2 granddaughters in high school here, and my oldest daughter is a teacher here, and I'm from the U.S. Army, Vietnam era.
I teach here.
Air Force pilot, Vietnam, lived here for 52 years. Have both Carl and Shannon. They graduated from high school here, and Carl's still teaching.
Jack Levin, I'm one of your substitute teachers. Been subbing for 27 years. I was in Vietnam from 66 to 69.
Hello, I'm David Henneberry. I've been in Jackson for 30 years, ex-Air Force, aircraft maintenance and teaching, and now I'm facility supervisor at a church in town, and I love what I do here. And thank you for inviting us.
I'm Joe Burke, and I've been in the Valley for 45 years. I served in the United States Coast Guard. I was a hospital corpsman.
I'm Eric Cole. I've lived here for 26 years. I'm a U.S. Army infantry veteran.
This is not a veteran's possibility. I had my knee replaced, like so many others. I'm Bruce Houghton. I lived in Jackson for 55 years. I have 2 stepsons that graduated from this high school, and they're very successful. And thanks to a good education starting here. Thank you.
My name is Jim Klaus. I've lived here 50 years, and my granddaughter is Roxy Martinez.
My name is Eric. I was in the U.S. Army. I was a mechanic.
I'm Horton Spitzer, lived here 44 years, served in the U.S. Navy on a hunter-killer destroyer tracking Russian subs, and we did track a few, and nobody knew about it. Nothing like finding a Russian sub 100 miles off of Washington, D.C.
My name is Bruce Fisk. I'm born and raised here. My son goes to school here. Spent 31 years in the Army and retired from there 2 years ago. And I want to say thank you for inviting us, and I know many of you from 4-H.
Hi, Tom Lennon. Been here 42 years. I was Vietnam era Army. That's my granddaughter too, so.
I'm Dick Scarlett, U.S. Army, 57 to 59, and then 61, 62. And I was in the Remington Raiders. I carried a Remington typewriter on my back as a company clerk to the company commander. I have a granddaughter and grandson, both high school here. Our son Bill is chairman of the school board.
First of all, I wish my wife was with me to translate. John Wilbrecht in Jackson, U.S. Army, Korea, University of Michigan, Jackson at the National Opera. I retired a few years ago.
Seth Lewis, U.S. Army, 2006 to 2015.
Melissa Adams, I'm one of the school resource officers here. I was a radio operator in the United States Marine Corps and a mom of 5 boys.
Ray Pilgrim, 1960, 1964, U.S. Coast Guard. Both my daughters graduated from high school here. Not this building, the ones that are all gone now.
Raymond Tice, I'm a retired U.S. Air Force officer, serve communications.
Alicia McGaw, United States Air Force from 2003 to 2007.
Neil Ford, served in U.S. Navy submarines from 1974 to 1994. Moved here in 94 and have 2 children that graduated from this school.
My name is Bill McPeak. Thank you, Mary Teasy and the administration for doing this for us. For some of us, stuff like this was a long time coming. I served in the Air Force from 65 to 69. Our granddaughter Drew is in 8th grade, and thank you, our grandson Liam is a junior here.
My name is Kip McMillan. Lived in Jackson for 35 years. Served in the Army from 1958 to 61. And I want to thank you for having this show. This is absolutely spectacular, and it's nice to know that our service was not forgotten.
My name is Craig Schwender, commissioned as a lieutenant in '69, served in the infantry for 5 years, and then went to law school, did the next 25 years in the JAG. Didn't enjoy every minute, but.
My name is Rich Sugden. I'm a family doctor here. First moved to Jackson in 1947. Some of you have been to our place out in Kelly, which was called the Ramshorn Ranch back then when my mom and dad rented. Dad was a wrangler, mom was a chief cook and bottle washer. But then after meeting my wife Sue here in high school when she was a freshman, went through college and then medical school, and then went in the Navy as a flight surgeon back in the, when was it, the 70s. Spent 5 years in the Navy as a flight surgeon, finished my medical training, moved here in 1975. So next year it'll have been 50 years.
My name is Bill Imes, was a U.S. Navy fighter pilot.
My name is John Baker, United States Naval Medical Corps. Thanks for lunch.
Hi, my name is Charlie Ankeny. I've lived in Jackson for 45 years, and I was in the U.S. Navy from 1970 to 74. I have 4 grandkids in the high school.
Zach Witt, served in the U.S. Army. I was a cavalry scout, gunner on a Bradley fighting vehicle. I have 3 boys. I have a senior here today, Brennan. Where are you? And if you watch college football, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but go Army, beat Navy.
Sean Stevens, U.S. Navy, Special Warfare, 87 to 91.
Tony Matthews, Army Infantry.
Cree Miller, U.S. Army. I joined the Army when they came out with the buddy system in 1996 with a friend of mine, and served all through my senior year of high school at a reserve unit, and left for basic training in July of my summer of my senior year. I have 2 daughters here at the high school that are a junior and a senior, and a 5th grader at Wilson Elementary.
Jay Johnson, I served in the Air Force and in Wyoming Army Guard, and have 2 granddaughters here. Thank you.
So 11th and 12th graders, the last time this event was held here at Jackson High School, the high school was small enough that we could fit the entire student body in the auditorium. That's not possible today. The school's grown so much. We currently have our 11th and 12th graders here. The camera at the back of the room is live streaming this event to the 9th and 10th grade classrooms here at the high school. So 11th and 12th graders, why don't we stand up and wave and say hello to all the 9th and 10th graders that are in their classrooms. Don't be shy, come on. Let's give them a wave. It's my pleasure now to introduce our 3 speakers this afternoon. Our first speaker is Mr. David Hill. Mr. Hill was born in Massachusetts and has lived in Germany, Virginia, and Japan before finally settling in Jackson in 2009. He's a 1969 graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Following parachute training and Ranger School, he served more than 2 years as a platoon leader and company commander with an engineer battalion, and as a staff officer with the North Bavaria Engineer District in Germany. Mr. Hill also served over 14 years in the U.S. Army Reserve, retiring from the Army in 1989 as a major. Mr. Hill holds a BS degree in engineering from West Point, a Master of Science degree with honors in business administration from Boston University, and a Juris Doctor degree and a Master of Laws degree with the highest honors from George Washington University. He has been an adjutant of the Jackson Hole American Legion Post 43 since 2022, and a post member for 15 years. Please join me in welcoming Mr. David Hill as one of our guest speakers this afternoon.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Bennett and Mary Teesey for all the hard work in organizing this event and inviting all the veterans to attend. I'm going to tell you a little about my background and how I happened to end up at West Point and what it takes to get there. Then I'll talk a little about what I did in the Army and what the service did for me, my time in the service. And then hopefully I can say a few words about the American Legion as well. I was born, as Bennett said, in a very small town in Massachusetts, youngest of 4 children. My dad was a carpenter to start out and started a construction company, a small one, with my uncle. My mother was the music supervisor of all the schools in my town. So everybody in my family had to play at least one instrument. I became a drummer. How did I happen to go to West Point from this little town? No one from my town had ever been there. Well, at that time, in the late 50s and early 60s, there was a program on TV, black and white TV, every week called Men of West Point. And it used to tell stories about cadets and their lives and what was going on at West Point. That was the first time I ever heard of the place. Then my Boy Scout troop later on planned a trip to go camping upstate New York near West Point. And we spent a weekend there, and I got to go to a football game and a parade, and that sort of planted the seed for me to think about whether I could even consider going there. But I needed to get a nomination from a senator or congressman. That's one of the requirements, although there's another way to get in. You can join the service, and there's an avenue where you can go to the service academies, the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy, from the service. Well, I was fortunate enough to get a nomination from my congressman and was admitted to the class of 1969, along with my classmate back there, Craig Schwender, who I didn't know until after we moved to Jackson. I received a really wonderful education at West Point. At that time, we all got a degree in engineering, BS degree. But in the 80s, West Point changed their situation to introduce a lot of majors. And I recently looked up where it stands in the colleges in the United States. It's number 8 out of 211 colleges in liberal arts. Very surprising to me as an engineer. I graduated as a second lieutenant in the Corps of Engineers with my degree. What did I do in the Army? Well, starting out, I had 60 days leave, and I told my new wife we would never have 60 days vacation again in my whole life. So we got married and went on a trip across the United States and back. It was fantastic. 9,000 miles in 5 weeks. Then I reported to parachute training at Fort Benning, and after that, Ranger School, where actually Craig was my fellow in the same Ranger class. At the age of 24, I was assigned to my first troop unit, which was an engineer battalion in Germany at the time. And I became responsible right away for a platoon of about 30 soldiers and several $1 million worth of vehicles and equipment. What we did was build bridges and rafts to cross the tanks of the 1st Armored Division across rivers in Germany like the Danube River. Later on, I became a company commander of a combat engineer company, about 140 men and even more equipment. This was all during the Cold War, when more than 500,000 American soldiers were stationed in West Germany to keep the Russians from coming across from East Germany or the other Iron Curtain countries. We had frequent exercises where we deployed in the German countryside to simulate how we would defend against any kind of attack. After 2 years, I was reassigned to a district engineer office and supervised maintaining and repairing of U.S. facilities in Bavaria. I resigned from active duty in 1974 to attend law school. And as Bennett said, I was a reserve officer after that for more than 14 years. All I ever did was 2 weeks a year, because that time the U.S. was not involved in any real major conflicts. After that, I had a long career, 48 years as a patent and trademark lawyer. What did the time in the service give me? Well, I think, number one, I always think of self-confidence to deal with any kind of a problem or challenge. Things like Ranger School teach you that you can deal with those kinds of things. And throughout my life, whenever I had a challenge, I would think back to the challenges of Ranger School and say, hey, this is nothing compared to that. I learned what it takes to be a leader and to inspire other people. It's not enough to be a commander and tell people what to do. You have to be able to inspire them to want to do what you're asking them and telling them to do. The service really opened my eyes to diversity. I grew up in a little town. There were no African Americans in that town. There weren't even any Catholic churches in that town. When I got to West Point, I roomed with different people of different nationalities. We had cadets from other countries. One of my roommates during my time there was an African American who introduced me to soul music for the first time. And as a leader in my later service, I had people in my units from all different walks of life, different backgrounds, and I learned how to deal with all those people and get along with them. For me, the biggest thing was my education. West Point is free. Not only free, you get paid. You get paid half the base pay of a second lieutenant. It's not much, but it was a little bit. And it was used to pay for your meals and also your books. And every so often you could get a little extra money to use for a weekend somewhere. But I got 4 college degrees on the Army and the GI Bill at the time. 36 months of benefits for those of us who served. All of that was basically paid for by the GI Bill. The service gave me a love of world travel. I love it. I still do it. My wife and I have been to something like 75 countries. And it also gave me an opportunity to learn to ski when I lived in Germany for those 4.5 years. And more than anything, it really instilled in me a love of my country. I will mention a few things about our American Legion post, if I have time. Post 43, who many of the people here are members of, currently has 134 men and women members who are all veterans. And we also have a Sons of the American Legion squadron, and that's available to any male non-veterans whose fathers, grandfathers, mothers, or grandmothers were veterans. Actually, Bennett is a member of our Sons of the American Legion squadron. And we're also resurrecting what's called an American Legion auxiliary post, which this town had from 1922 until 2012, when the number of members fell below the threshold that was required. So I invite any of you whose grandmothers, mothers, sisters, spouses, and so forth were veterans to join our auxiliary, and we hope to get it off the ground in a few months. Finally, I'd like to say Mary Tesey has my phone number, my email, and if anybody has questions or if you need advice about joining the service, applying for one of the service academies, or any of the many scholarship programs available through the services, I would be happy to speak with you and help you. So please feel free to use that connection. I'll end by saying Go Army, beat Navy.
I tried to get my son to apply to a service academy, primarily because I would have loved for him to have served our country, but not writing that tuition check would have been great also. Our second speaker is Chief Weber. Chief Weber retired in 2009 from the United States Army Reserve with the rank of Major, having served 22 years. She has been with the Jackson Police Department for 20 years and is currently the Chief of Police. I've gotten to know her through my membership in the Breakfast Rotary Club, and 11th and 12th graders, if you decide to try and use a fake ID in town, she might be the one that knocks on your door after it gets taken. Let's welcome Chief Weber. Thank you.
Good afternoon, veterans, students, and staff members. It is an absolute privilege for me to be here today, so thank you for inviting me to speak. Today we come together to honor a truly remarkable group, our veterans. These are men and women who raised their right hands, took a solemn oath, and committed themselves to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. Veterans come from all walks of life and all kinds of backgrounds. Some answered the call during the draft, some joined for the adventure, and others, like myself, joined because we needed money for college. But no matter our reasons for joining, we all share a few common things. We learn the value of committing to something bigger than ourselves, and whether we liked it or not, we learned to be early risers, because in the military, sleeping in isn't exactly an option. I remember sitting in an auditorium, much like this one in 1987, as a high school junior. My path wasn't clear. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew one thing. I wanted to go to college. Like many teenagers, I had ambition and was $0. Scholarships like the Hathaway didn't exist back then. So in January 1987, I found myself in front of an Army recruiter thinking, sure, how hard can that be? The next thing I knew, I was signed up for the split entry program with the Army Reserves. On my way to basic training in Fort Dix, New Jersey, during the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. After graduating high school, I attended the advanced individual training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where I learned the job that I was going to do in the Army as an enlisted soldier. Then I went to the University of Wyoming, where I joined ROTC and majored in criminal justice and received my commission as an Army engineer officer. What started as a practical decision to help fund my education turned into a career filled with adventures. Who knew that signing on the dotted line would lead me to jumping out of perfectly good airplanes? Fast forward a few years, I moved to Jackson, got married, and started a family. Balancing the military and a career while raising kids is an adventure all on its own. Drill weekends often meant packing up and heading out of state, sometimes missing birthdays and holidays. My children, now all grown, learned that their mom wasn't just skipping out on a birthday cake for fun, but she was off to make the world a safer place. Looking back, my time wasn't just about sacrifice. It taught my family values like resilience, responsibility, and a whole lot of patience. Over the next 22 years, I wore many hats and served in various roles. Some pushed me far outside my comfort zone, but each one taught me something invaluable. I attended the engineer officer and basic and advanced courses, went to airborne school, and completed more leadership classes than I knew existed. I was honored to serve as a general's aide, a company commander, and a logistics officer. During my career, I had the unique opportunity to deploy to South Korea twice. Each time I was struck by the beauty and resilience of the country and its people. We traveled from the bustling streets of Seoul to the serene countryside, and each journey taught me something new. These deployments weren't just about fulfilling a mission, they were about building unity and understanding, and working together with a shared vision with the South Korean allies. In one of my last positions, I was assigned to the FEMA Region 8 Response and Planning Team, responding to missions on U.S. soil. In 2005, I deployed to New Orleans for Hurricane Katrina, a disaster that claimed nearly 1,400 lives and tested our nation's strength. In 2008, I supported security efforts at the Democratic National Convention in Denver, Colorado. Each assignment and role has brought new lessons about service, leadership, and resilience. When I first joined the military, my focus was very simple: funding for college. But as I look back now, I realize that I walked away with so much more. I gained discipline, a drive that never wavers, and a resilience that has profoundly shaped me. These qualities have served me well as I transitioned into a career in law enforcement, where the lessons of integrity and purpose continue to guide my work. And of course, looking forward to having 2 retirements isn't a bad perk either. The training experiences and challenges opened doors I didn't even know existed. They prepared me for life's unexpected hurdles and deepened my respect for those who serve and protect. To those of you considering military service, know that it's more than a job. It's a calling that will shape you in ways you can't foresee. But whether you choose the military or another path, I encourage you to find your own way to contribute to something greater than yourself. On this Veterans Day, let's remember the men and women who have answered that call for service. Let's remember that freedom isn't free. It's built on sacrifices of those who came before us and those who stand ready to protect today. This day serves as a reminder of the courage it takes to serve and the resilience it takes to return home and continue making a difference. For many veterans, their story doesn't end when they hang up their uniforms. They come back to their communities ready to lead, to inspire, and to make a difference in new ways. They become teachers, business owners, and volunteers, showing us that the values of discipline, teamwork, and commitment extend far beyond the military life. As you stand on the brink of your future, I urge you to think about what service means to you. Whether it's volunteering in your community, standing up for what's right, or simply being there for a friend in need, your actions matter. You have the power to make a difference. Remember, courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the determination to move forward despite it. Each of you has the potential to lead and inspire those around you. You can honor veterans not just by remembering their sacrifices, but by living with purpose and integrity. So today, as we reflect on veterans, ask yourself, how can I serve my community? How can I make a positive impact? The answers may surprise you. Video, please.
Three teens were arrested today for defacing the Kensington Park War Memorial overnight. The destruction includes painted messages against the military and the war in the Middle East. The 3 teens were picked up in the early morning hours after evidence was left at the scene.
Grandpa, something wrong?
Some people sure have short memories, and those who are too young to know need to be taught. Come on, I want to show you guys something.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly
dawn on the morning of the 6th of June, 1944, 225 Rangers jumped off the British landing craft and ran to the bottom of these cliffs. 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, only 90 could still bear arms. These are the boys of Puente Hobo. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war. You are men who in your, quote, lives fought for life and left the vivid air signed with your honor.
In the name of God and country, I learned to defy gravity. To honor my family, I lived in the belly of a beast.
I fixed the hearts of iron monsters. I became a worm in the mud for dignity,
For honor,
for righteousness' sake, for God and country.
I fought for you.
I fought for you. For you. I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you.
For you.
For you. For you. I fought for you.
I fought for you. I fought for you, and I'd do it again.
In closing, let's carry forward the spirit of service.
Memorial overnight. The
Spirit of
destruction
Okay, in closing, let's carry forward the spirit of service in our lives, honoring the legacy of our veterans by living fully, compassionately, and courageously. Happy Veterans Day.
Our final speaker this afternoon, Mr. Todd Hanna, served as an officer in the United States Marine Corps from 2002 to 2008. During his service, he completed 2 combat tours in Iraq, one as part of the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit deployed to Babil Province from 2004 to 2005, and one as an embedded advisor to the Iraqi army in Al-Qaim along the Syrian border from 2007 to 2008. Mr. Hanna also participated and operated Unified Assistance, the humanitarian response to the 2004 Indonesian tsunami. Prior to and following his service in the Marine Corps, Mr. Hanna has long led and advised companies, teams, and projects across multiple industries and at various stages. He has also served on numerous for-profit and nonprofit boards of directors. He is a graduate of the University of Texas, the National Outdoor Leadership School, is a former Outward Bound instructor for veteran-focused expeditions, and is a previous recipient of the Austin Under 40 Award. Todd currently serves as Chief Operating Officer at Vertical Harvest Farms, headquartered here in Jackson. And I am proud to say has become one of my good friends since my wife and I have moved to Jackson. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Todd Hanna.
Thank you. The under 40 part was a while ago, just FYI. Echoing the sentiments, thanks for having me, thanks for having us here today. I appreciate the 9th and 10th graders who are watching this via video. I'm guessing maybe falling asleep at this point. I'm thankful to the 11th graders for being here, but I'm really thankful to the 12th graders who may not realize this, but I have the honor of swearing you in to the military today. So why don't we start? You guys rise, raise your right hand. I'm just kidding, all right? What I am happy to do here is take the opportunity to be here and maybe provide some new or additional perspective, albeit my own perspective, on Veterans Day, what it means to me, and to challenge you, I think, to consider maybe broadening what you think about Veterans Day in your own perspective of what it means to you. So let me start with this. I suspect that when we use the term veteran or we talk about Veterans Day, your first thought, or maybe the first images that pop into your head or come to mind, look something like this. Uniforms, soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, maybe tanks, helicopters, airplanes, weapons, ships. I would say probably the essence of combat or war. And that's to be expected. It's true. Because veterans have signed up with a willingness to do what you see them doing in those images, but I want to offer you an additional perspective on that. Something I think about on Veterans Day, something that I like to think about in addition to those images, and in addition to the people that I served alongside who served before me and who still serve today. 11, 11, 11. I can tell not many people know what that is. Many people don't realize what that is. But the origin of Veterans Day was Armistice Day. On the 11th day of the 11th month at exactly 11 a.m., an armistice between the Allies of World War I and the Germans was signed. And for those who don't know, an armistice is just a formal agreement to end all fighting. So you see at its core, Veterans Day is also about peace. So too is the service of veterans. In my experience, most veterans prefer peace. It's not that they are looking to fight when they join, it's that they are willing to fight when they join, for you and for peace. My point is this, for me on Veterans Day and every day, I like to think that it's just as important to remember the peace as it is to honor the willingness of veterans to fight and sacrifice. I encourage you and I challenge you during your reflections this Veterans Day, this upcoming 11th day of the 11th month at 11 a.m. to do the same. Remember the peace. Now, as I just mentioned, Veterans Day for me is also about sacrifice, but so too is it about service. And I'm guessing that when I use the word service and sacrifice in the context of Veterans Day, those same images pop up. Uniforms, materials, weapons, combat, war. And again, they should, as those are core to the veteran experience. But this Veterans Day, I want to offer you an additional perspective on service and sacrifice. What is often overlooked and underappreciated in the service and sacrifice are the sons, daughters, wives, husbands, parents, the families who make service possible for those who wear the uniform. These family members have sacrificed just as much, if not more, than those who have worn the uniform. They take care of the kids when a parent is deployed. They keep a home ready for the return of their loved one. They pay the bills, they drive carpool, they read bedtime stories, they attend sporting events alone. They move every few years so that their loved one can serve at their new duty station. And they provide a space, both physical and emotional, for the loved one who returns with the invisible scars that sometimes come with the trauma of what is seen overseas. My point is this. For me, on Veterans Day and every day, I think it's just as important to remember those who didn't wear the uniform, but whose sacrifice and service was just as real. I encourage you and I challenge you during your reflections on this Veterans Day to do the same. Remember and say thank you to those who served alongside our veterans. They just didn't wear a uniform. And last but not least, I want to leave you with one additional perspective related to Veterans Day. Perhaps the most common question I get around Veterans Day is some version of, what's the best way to thank a veteran? And Chief Weber sort of mentioned this a second ago. Those of us on this stage have heard, and believe me when I say appreciate, the phrase, thank you for your service. It really does mean a lot, and I know, and we know, that it is sincere, but I want to offer an additional way to thank a veteran. It's admittedly less direct, and it is admittedly more idealistic, but for me, it is equally sincere and something I try to do myself. The best way to thank a veteran is to be an example worth fighting for. Let that sink in. The best way to thank a veteran is to be an example worth fighting for. Let me add some context. For me, and I would bet for others on this stage, and for others who have served and are serving today, the biggest act of gratitude you can give for my service is your engagement and all that those of us who were willing to fight and sacrifice were willing to do it for. Your willingness to speak up when you see a wrong, your willingness to take care of your neighbor even when you disagree with them, your willingness to serve your community and serve others, even those, actually especially those, who differ from you, your willingness to volunteer, to mentor, to teach, to engage, your willingness to give voice to those whose voice is not as loud as yours or is simply ignored, your willingness to protect the rights of others even when, and I say again, especially when, they differ from you. In short, your willingness to serve with or without a uniform. These are the things that veterans were and are willing to sacrifice and sometimes die for. So for me, as a veteran, to see you actually doing the things that we are and still are willing to protect is the greatest form of gratitude. As John Kennedy said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. So my point is this: for me on Veterans Day and every day, I think it's just as important to be an example worth fighting for as it is to thank those who have done the fighting. I encourage you, I challenge you during your reflections this Veterans Day to do the same. Be an example worth fighting for and show it through your actions. Remember the peace, it's what we fought for. Remember the families of those who wore the uniform, their sacrifice is just as real. Be an example worth fighting for. That's the greatest form of gratitude to those of us who have had to fight and put it all on the line for the rest of us. 3 additional perspectives for you to consider on this Veterans Day and every day. Thank you.
Thank you for your insights and wise words this afternoon. On behalf of the student body and the entire Jackson Hole High School community, we're very appreciative. Thank you. Let's give our speakers one last round of applause. To end today's ceremony, I'd like to introduce Mr. Colin Binko again and the Jackson Hole High School Choir. At this time, I'd like to ask our guests and our veterans to remain in your where you're standing, and at this time, I'd like to dismiss our 11th and 12th graders. Thank you, students.